Our recruitment process has a number of stages, but the two key ones are resume and what we call the elevator pitch. The resume is very important in terms of outlining the qualifications, the work experience and volunteering that someone may have undertaken. But what we call our elevator pitch is about 250 words for you to take the opportunity to sell yourself to us. Essentially, it's a marketing tool. We don't want to see what's in your resume, we want you to tell us what you're going to bring to our organisation.
One common method for assessing potential candidates are assessment centres. They're very effective because it allows the interviewers to kind of compare the graduates or the candidates on the day, be able to see how they perform under pressure, see how they respond to questions differently, also see how they interact with each other. So it really gives you a holistic view of how people perform on a given day with things that may be thrown at them that they're not expecting, and also how they interact with people that they didn't know before. And so you're really kind of putting them through their paces and getting a real broad viewpoint of how they might be as a potential employee.
Our recruitment process starts with a first challenge to complete your application. That's not too easy sometimes. I've seen so many examples. So you have to complete our application form. It's an online application tool. So you have to complete all the questions about your contact details and all that stuff. So that's the first challenge. The next step is you have to answer some pre-screening questions about yourself, that we get a feeling for you. What kind of personality are you? When you just passed all these questions, we send you to online testing. It's an aptitude test and it's a situational test. And when you pass these tests, you come to the final stage. And we call it recruitment day. The first stage is a face-to-face interview. It's with a senior manager or even with a partner. After this, you come to a group activity. You will get a case and some time to prepare yourself. And then you have to act in the group, find your role, and present your results in front of a jury. And the third part is an office tour. That's a very nice thing. It's just like, it sounds a little bit more casual, but it's not. We still assess you on that time, but you can prepare some questions and you will meet grads started this year or last year. And you can just see the office because it's so important where you work. And you just want to have a look around at the office. Is it really the place I want to stay for the next years?
For us, we've looked at we really clearly defined what is the attitudes and the behaviours that make someone work for our organisation. And that's things like being a team player, being very customer service focused, being willing to share their knowledge with others, being a self-directed learner. These are things that are sort of, I guess, part of our organisation's DNA that we specifically go looking for in a candidate. The way in which we do that is we ask a whole heap of behavioural differential questions that essentially put a scenario to someone or put a question to someone and get them to lean a certain way without giving them any clues as to what it is that we're specifically looking for. So I think in that sort of context, what we're looking for is not so much the skill set that someone brings, but how they've applied it in the past and how they've shown us and how they can show us, I should say, the attitudes that will be a success in our company.
The recruitment process in Firefly has changed quite considerably over the years. We did have a very complicated process, but times have changed. It's a little bit more simplistic these days. So we might advertise jobs over our Twitter feed. We might post jobs to something like LinkedIn. We might use social networks to actually get the message out there. Of the people who we find or that we know or who approach us, the first thing we do is a telephone interview, because anyone coming into our business has got to have impact over the telephone. Once they've passed that test, we pull them into the company for an interview where we go into a little bit more detail about what our aims and objectives are and what their aims and objectives are. And then if we think there's a good match, we might test people on their writing skills. We might test people on their creativity skills. We might test people in terms of how they deal with matters that are either urgent or important, and how they prioritise their workload. And of course, finally, is a culture test. They need to go out for a cup of coffee with a few other people in the company to see if the chemistry works, because it's surprising sometimes how actually at that point when you're testing the chemistry, a couple of people might say, I just couldn't get on with them. Finding the right people for the job and recruiting people from overseas has been quite high on my agenda, actually, because sometimes you just don't find the talent, within the UK, so you have to look further and wider. So I often conduct interviews over Skype, either for people who are living, somewhere else in the world, or maybe they're just living somewhere else in the UK. But, Skype is really very, very useful. And at that point, we can go through a lot of these tests and examples over Skype. It's really not an issue at all. So I have often gone through the whole recruitment process over Skype. And at that point, someone's packed their suitcase, jumped on a plane and arrived in London and sorted themselves out.